Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
The side of the federal building has been blown off, Jesse.
They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra.
Just like a segment of society that is not living in reality.
In a certain sense, we're kind of a little bit more Israel's vassal state.
There are police chiefs facilitating prostitution networks.
Do you understand? It's all in your head. It's your move.
Somebody.
Am I the only one? Oh, I did it again. I had Rumble going in the back. Sorry, I fucked up the intro. Was there any weird? Just quit? I mean, obviously, I've already fumbled the intro, but have you noticed weird audio things with the intro or no?
No.
Okay, because it's just been doing weird, glitchy stuff lately, StreamYard. So, anyways, let's restart that over. What's up, guys? Go ahead.
I did initially have an issue with it as far as just like applying it as the intro to begin with when we first had it, as far as like when Lainey first made it for us. But since I think you like did something to it within that process. So
no, I don't know if we had an issue with this on Already Dead recently. I've definitely had it on a couple of the morning shows. There were just weird things where like it wouldn't bring up certain stuff, like it would show on my end. Sometimes it would show the audio. I've been noticing lately too when I like swap between windows where it does this weird audio thing where it's almost like the intro glitches. So where it didn't used to do that before, but I guess my understanding is there's some sort of nerd beta or something going on. I have noticed it a little bit less, so I guess maybe they fixed it or something, but I guess it's something that's not optional in StreamYard, so like everyone got it, and so I don't know. Anyways, just to restart that, guys, sorry. Welcome to the Morning Dump. This is a dual podcast production here today. This is going to go up on all the platforms. I can already see it's, Austin already set up his Rumble and everything, no problems. So this is going up on all the platforms today. So this is a No Way Jose and Underclass podcast production, dual production here today, a through and through. So you'll be able to find it on all the platforms, on our Twitter, everything. But yeah, welcome to the Morning Dump. I'm Jose Galison. I am joined by Austin Picard. And here we are on another Morning Dump. It is March 14th. Pretty crazy. A little bit of a slow day. I mean, I didn't know if you were going to show up. I was going to do a reading. I will let people know. You guys can see it says Yiki didn't kill himself if you're showing up for the live. That's going to be changed. I'll change that later because I'm going to drop that. I'll bring that back up another solo episode because it's a long article and it's awkward to read when you have a guest or a co-host or somebody else with you. So
we haven't talked since Tinfoil dropped, really.
No.
Except for when it was in its infancy as
well. We talked on Already Dead a little bit, but I mean that was with Jules and like.
Right.
Well, wait, no, Already Dead was no shit. Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about it since Tuesday, and it did drop on Tuesday because it literally was like, oh, you're right. I was thinking that we had more time to talk about it. No, it dropped. I mean, I haven't actually listened. I don't know if you're someone who goes back and listens to your episodes. I didn't.
I can hardly listen to myself anymore.
I hate it. Like, I used to all the time, and there's definitely pros and cons, and maybe I should. I will admit, as a content creator, it's better to go back and listen to your own stuff. It allows you to think about what you did wrong, what you can do better, blah 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 blah. But I used to do it every single episode, but then I got to a point where like, for one, I don't like doing it because you're like, I already did this. Like I already know the content's gonna be said. I don't like listening to myself. Like no one likes listening to themselves really, but it is good for improving and becoming a better presenter. But it is brutal, and I've gotten to a point where I make so much content. It's like it's just there's no way I could watch all my content. That'd be too much. But I don't do that anymore. I don't even do it for big stuff anymore, like Tinfoil Hat. Now I will admit I did go back and watch the episode like the very beginning just to see like when it started, because it is like he's doing this weird thing now where he kind of starts middle conversation. So I kind of want to see what we were talking about at the beginning, and then I zoom forward to see what they talked about at the end, which they talked about literally nothing at the end of this episode, because they do that thing where like after the guests leave, they do the let's break down this episode. They didn't break down the episode at all. They just did plugs. They went straight to plugs. So which is whatever. It's fine. I mean, I think they literally were like, we have no breaking down to do. Like this is they went into everything. So is what they said. So I think it was also because it was kind of a longer episodes. They're probably like, oh shit, like. But
this Sam's like, I have to fight traffic, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, man. I think it went really well. Honestly,
I do too. Yeah.
I
hey, sound off in the chat if you're new here. If you're new from the show. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. But that morning that I messaged you with the timestamps and the fucking and the all the hashtags and stuff, like I was it was like 3 a.m. right, basically when I had messaged you, because I pretty much I listened to about an hour of it.
Did you?
And, yeah. So I think it went well, but
The common thread. I'll be honest. I am bad about this. I've heard this from a lot of content creators. They do this and they say don't ever do it, and you really shouldn't. And I understand why, because it's just kind of like an obsessive behavior you shouldn't do. But when I go on big shows, I do have a tendency to like read like all the comments. Sometimes I don't. Every now and then I have the self-will to just be like, there's no point in doing it. But big shows like Tinfoil Hat, Tim Pool, Dave Smith, whatever, any of the big shows I've done before or that I do, I usually go and then check it, because usually like, oh, what do people think? That's kind of the best way. People are assholes in comments typically. So it is like, it's a very brutal way to kind of get it. But yeah, the impression I got is that the people said it was kind of ADD all over the place, but really interesting. I mean, I saw a lot of people complain that it was like, holy shit, like that didn't like it, that it was too all over the place, that it was but I think it fills a certain niche. You have to be in a certain place, as you've mentioned before already, that Sam was kind of like, like if you're a normie. So I think you have to be somewhat inundated to this. I mean, if we were to try to cater that topic for a normie episode, for a normie like audience, or even like a semi-normie audience, it would have taken way too long. It would have been way too hard. It would have and honestly, that would have required a different show, because Sam, that's not the show for it. Because Sam's not going to it's not like Sam's going to give us a ton of pushback. I mean, he might ask follow-up questions because he's curious, but he's not really going to be the skeptical type. So, I mean, which is what you're going to want with normies. You're going to want some sort of pushback. You'd be like, oh, explain this. And you can give the source, because obviously you have somebody like the host, who's going to be a less information person, and they're in a better place to be able to understand, like, I need you to fill in the blanks on X, Y, and Z. Whereas, like, we've been so deep in the sauce in this stuff that, like, we know all the information. So, like, it's hard not to have this assumption that other people know what you know, which is, like, any time in life, in any interaction, really. You do this where you have to remember these people have a different set of knowledge than you do. So, yeah.
100%. And I think that's something that I definitely need to improve in that area, as far as how I present certain things, because I do sort of approach certain avenues of information with an assumption that is kind of baked in, and I shouldn't do that, because it's probably not the best for casting the most wide net. Yeah. For appealing to an audience, but at the same time, it's like I think really the content and really the subject material that we're attempting to present, it called for, I think, the approach we took. Honestly, yeah,
I agree.
So,
I don't think we did any. Looking back, I'm like, the only thing I would have liked is maybe if I had known that we really was going to go that well, I would have liked to prepare a little bit more. Because I thought we were over prepared, but he just let us cook. So I was like, oh shit, like fuck, like we should probably been maybe a little bit. No, I say probably. I think we were fine. Like, it's not that we were caught with our pants down or anything, but it was like, we definitely could have tightened some things up some more because we had more time to work with. So why not? But like usually most Tinfoil Hat episodes are probably only what, like 45 minutes to an hour and a half. Because I mean they have all the like the clips at the end, this that. So like yeah, you see it and it's like in 2 hours usually when you look in your podcatcher thingy, but it's in reality only like an hour to an hour and a half. Ours, I want to say, was probably damn near 2 hours. So it's like we went into a lot, and we really could have filled in a lot of it, but I don't think we were anticipating to have that much time. So that's part of why. And maybe that's why it came off that way to people later, because then later they see that like towards the end, we're kind of like almost just kind of rehashing things, and they're kind of like they're seeing this extra time from their perspective, and some from their head, they're like, oh, this could have been a lot less disjointed, a lot more, and I'm trying to think of a better word, a lot more understandable. But we weren't expecting to have this sort of time to work with. So we were keeping it very tight, very like maybe support the connections or the or whatever specific conspiracies with like maybe 1 to 3 data points and move on. Because that's the most you can do while covering 20 plus fucking however many conspiracies and weaving them together.
But I mean, when we talked like the next day, I was still so frustrated because there were like at least 3 real like juicy points that I forgot to kind of like implement at the right moment, and I went in the wrong direction for just a split second, and it's hard to kind of make your way back there. You know what I'm saying? And like
that's what I'm here for. I will say I want to push back something real quick because I get this a lot. I see it a lot in your comments on videos. Your audience doesn't seem to like me very much.
No, it's not that. I swear my audience is just they're very spicy, man. They're a little testy. But they're very emotional, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
they're there for you. They're there for you, and so they like your soul, and that's fine. Let's get it. But like. A lot of people complain that I will talk over you sometimes, or that I will redirect the conversation. And I admit, I do that. Sometimes I do it too much. Sometimes I do it when I shouldn't. But we're also a two-man show here, and we also have strengths and weaknesses. And I think, and I saw like 1 or 2 people complain about that with Tinfoil Hat. Not much though, but it was like you look back and I'm like, that's kind of like it was perfect in that sense. In my opinion, obviously, I mean, I'm talking about myself somewhat here, so like. I'm a little biased, but like so far as playing to our strengths, we even had this discussion multiple times. The idea was we were going to play to our strengths. You're a far deeper, wealth of knowledge than I am. I'm far better. I'm far more of the. I don't know if I'd say I don't know if I'd say like I'm a showman type, but I'm more of like an in between. Yeah, exactly. Austin's fans going to Jose's show. Yeah, you made $20 yesterday, by the way.
Oh, thank you, guys. That's so fucking funny.
But yeah, no, we have like different strengths. Like mine is like for example, like throughout that show, you can see there were times where I would even there were a couple times I think I brought us back to previous ones we had moved on from because I was like, I know there's still stuff that like maybe Austin just got lost and focused on this one part of this, this thing. And I know he knows about this other thing. Cause that's another thing. I don't know I know the things although I don't know like exactly what if that makes sense. Like I know the broad strokes of what but I don't know every specific little. I can't spout it off like you. But I'm aware of what so I know the broad strokes of this stuff. So if I'm from a larger perspective, I guess you could almost say I'm the big picture guy. You guys I'm also it'd be a better way to put it. So where I see like, oh, we want to connect this thing to that thing, this thing to that thing, and I look back, I'm like, oh shit, Austin left this thing on the table that could have connected that to that, and he's really good at this. So all I gotta do is give him a quick little fucking like all I am is the guy that's like feeding the ball to you. That's all I'm your fucking was it Scottie Pippen to your Jordan? That's like basically what I'm doing. And like, sir, sometimes that might annoy you. You're like, why are you going this way when you should go in that way? And you're like, okay, maybe I fucked up, or maybe you're just not seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm trying to deliver the ball to him over here. So
it's natural, man. I mean, you know what I mean. And there are always going to be growing pains at times, right? But it's the natural course of conversations as well. But it is very helpful when you kind of spur me in the right direction and push me down that proper avenue, because occasionally I'll get lost in translation and kind of I wax poetic far too often.
Sometimes I politely have to tell you to shut the fuck up so we can move on. Yeah, so it is what it is.
Basically, I have to try and explain to William, dude, just tell me, like, you know what I mean? Like, please, I don't want to, like, and by the way, I did get scolded a little bit the other day, which was perfectly fine. No, honestly, I think it was fine. It was just my interpretation of it. I love talking to William, but I stepped on his toes a little bit on accident because I
Yeah.
didn't realize that he was about to present a connection, and I didn't realize that he had that connection in his PowerPoint, and
Yeah.
so I was like, dude, did you fucking realize? You know what I mean? All excited. And then he's
Did
like,
you know this connection that you already have in here? Yeah.
he's like, if you would just let me present the PowerPoint here, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh my god. So
Yeah.
sorry, William.
Yeah, well, I do want to let people out there know. I don't know if you said that on the show, but that was your first interview. You've never done an interview, so yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas I've been an interviewer the entire time, which is kind of an explanation for the different strengths. That's been my main thing. Is from I started, I was an interviewer. I've done a bring on a guest for a topic, and I will talk about said topic. And usually, I'm the less informed of the two, and so I've developed a different skill set as being the intellectually less dominant one, while also understanding where I want to bring a show. So it's a different. I do the solid big picture dump. is what JMS says. So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's great though, man. I really appreciate it. I think it's just honestly the timing of all of this and kind of like, oh, did you see what Fire Pixie said a second ago? I wanted to drink and play football with Jose, and I want to talk to Austin about why my boyfriend broke up with me.
Exactly. Yeah, different strokes. There you go.
100%. Anyway, I guess we should talk about some. Oh, before we do, I talked to Sam, and he said it's been like nothing but positive, as far as he said it's going really well. Like people seem to love it, and he's got nothing but positive feedback, overwhelmingly. So I thought that was super cool about our episodes. So
hell yeah, dude. And then we were followed up by Kurt Metzger. I haven't watched that one yet, though. I thought it was cool. That was a cool follow up. So yeah,
I didn't realize. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Oh, here you go. Here's another way to look at what the role I fill: the chill everyman tether, while still also I kind of have my feet in both worlds, because I'm semi-intellectual while also still being able to play in the fucking firebox. Someone saying, or in the sandbox, says I had to rewatch the last TFH because it was so fire. Fuck yeah, it was.
That's the feedback I've had, brother.
Yeah.
It's primarily people saying very dense but must listen. Basically, has been the reaction. So
a lot of great reaction. I'm looking forward to getting some more promos. I've done no promotion whatsoever. But that's because I'm waiting, baby. I'm waiting. Yeah. I have videos cooking in the wings. I have my people working on shit. So keep an eye out. I'll be dropping some. I actually had one drop yesterday, although that was I haven't done anything with that yet, though. But for those who aren't aware, I have a video guy now. Old Jolyon Klebold, Tim Tuttle. He's my video producer guy now.
He hit me up, and by the way, this is such crazy timing that he linked this to me. When was it actually? On Twitter, because I found it very interesting that he linked this to me 2 hours ago, and last night I brought this up. It sounds like COINTELPRO, basically the parents of a lot of these what seem to be domestic assets and operatives within the the context of the deep state, either seeding these narratives in the media landscape, or an example would be Stacey Abrams, her father, her parents, very very much like Kamala's parents as well, right? They seem almost like COINTELPRO operatives, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
and
they're the Karen Bass looking motherfuckers. They're these people that are playing around in these weird political, which I even covered yesterday, this Mahmoud guy, Khalil Mahmoud or whatever. Even he is a political actor that's coming through. He worked at the embassy in Lebanon. Lebanon, the Beirut. Right? It was in the British embassy for Syria that was in Lebanon, which is confusing, but yeah, that's where he was. So, but either way, my point being is that he's just of the same ilk of those sort of political actors. I mean, not saying that he is a theater, a actor, but he might be. So I'm just saying that it's interesting how this works. So
absolutely. So look who else kind of fits this exact same framework. Did Did you find that interesting? I noticed it in the moment.
Oh, it's muted, by the way. So
No, I know. I just rewound.
Oh, okay, all right, just making sure
But I
because it's been
noticed
weird.
it-
So
I noticed this comment in the moment though, and it was so. Oh yeah, you're right with StreamYard.
oh no, but is this a sideways little comment that he mentioned about his like dad, or maybe I want to say his dad that was involved in like college protests or something?
Exactly.
Which okay, all right. So the idea being is that obviously the protest class, I guess the college protest class is
timing of it all.
yeah. And I believe the I haven't looked enough into his like I know he supposedly got doxxed, and I haven't looked enough into. I am aware that his parents are professors, so I will say like so people bring that up and you're like okay, I mean yeah I get it, you know we're the conspiracy people here. We go oh well that glows, but you're like I mean someone's parents being professors, it's like.
Oh, for sure.
I mean that's a data point. It's a worthwhile data point of like that's kind of glowy, but that's nowhere near like a solid like.
No, I get what you're
anything,
saying. It's no sort of smoking gun of any kind, but it's still very worthwhile in acknowledging and kind of like propping up into the spotlight for a brief moment, so we can again go through our process of pattern recognition. You know what I'm saying? Like I just think it's worthwhile.
Oh, 100%.
But it's 20 seconds.
Have you read Strange Scenes Inside Laurel Canyon?
I started to read it. I have not finished.
It's so I mean even just the
But it's
first chapter, right?
nuts.
So if you take that book's premise, it's basically that before the hippie movement, there was a very powerful organized anti-war movement led by a bunch of Quakers, a bunch of black activists, a bunch of like my dad was one of them.
Operation Chaos, dog.
Like my dad was one of them. My dad was one of them.
It is
Yeah.
so good though, but it is Operation Chaos. This is like when Mae Brussel claimed it went into a hyper operational phase, and you have Carl Schaffler from Watergate, the dual military intelligence asset in the local PD, who's going to these protests and handing out all the poison candy and shit, and like it was very interesting time, and so I find it strange. At least worth mentioning.
I remember
know it
catching
was-
that too. I remember being like, I know a lot of people have gone with it in your tweet. To me, it didn't even raise to the point of tweeting, but it was enough to like kind of, Speaking of which, hey, is my audio all right? I just want to make sure I'm not like coming over like too hot or too quiet. I forgot to ask earlier.
At the
Am I good?
beginning, it was a little hot, but it sounds fine to me now.
Okay, cool. Let me guys. Also, guys, let us know if there's ever any issues in levels or anything like that in the chat. But it just seemed loud on my end. But all right, let's get into some content. But I did want to, on that point, I did notice that when I listened to it, I caught that, and I've also, so I was aware his parents were professors, so that obviously something caught my eye. Once again, there are people that parents are professors that have nothing to do with any intelligence agencies. So I'm just saying, it's a data point, but it's a little bit glowy, but nowhere near anything solid. But I did catch that. I was like, whoa, holy shit, like that's something. But it wasn't like, to me, I wasn't even like, let's tweet this. It was like, or share this information. It was more just like, okay, all right, because it was one data point. Like this is like it would either need to be a stronger data point or like multiple data points. It's a worthwhile data point to keep in mind. But all right, let's go ahead and get into the content. This is from The Cradle. It says, U.S. envoy sidelined by Trump after CNN interview on direct U.S.-Hamas talks. Here's a report. Here's this guy, which, Austin, you were telling me before. This guy, it was one of Jared Kushner's, childhood friends or something, I believe. College roommate, which makes this even weirder. Like, what is going on here? But let's get into it. Adam Bowler, the U.S. government's special envoy for hostage affairs, was stripped of his role over statements he made during an interview regarding negotiations with Hamas, according to reports on 13 March. The administration has pulled him off the Hamas hostage file and said that he needs to be further sidelined. 3 sources in the U.S. Republican Party were cited as saying by Jewish Insider. Now, I do want to back up. I know if you watch this show regularly, you're aware. But this guy, the key thing about him is he's kind of the first. He's kind of a trendsetter here. He's the first guy in a long time to do direct diplomacy with Hamas. So that's the thing, which we talked about this a while ago, and the other key thing to remember is that when this happened, when we had direct diplomacy with Hamas, we did not inform our Israeli partners, but they knew, and they made it known when they released when articles were released on the topic. Obviously, highly implying espionage, spying, I guess, and then also there was in one of those articles there was information that I guess Biden's administration, essentially pushed forward the idea of doing the same thing, and the Israelis freaked the fuck out and said, hell no. Whereas this time we did it without telling them, and now it looks like maybe we're seeing the consequences. So it looks like he's in Never Never Land, one source said. The thing is, I don't know why we'd be interested in him doing anything going forward after what he saw. We saw, said another. He's being sidelined, and that's good, but I don't know to what level. It was beyond bad, a disaster. I like Adam, but I think he needs to be parked, a third Republican source said. The report signals that there's talk to remove him entirely from the administration and not just from his role negotiating Gaza ceasefire issues. Look, they don't have... Now, this is him right here. Look, they don't have horns growing out of their heads. They're actually guys like us. They're pretty nice guys. We're the U.S. We're not an agent of Israel. We have specific interests at play.
Oh, shit.
That's...
Be careful, dog.
Yeah, I know, right? This is crazy. Just fucking breaking the third rail or fourth rail or whatever the fuck the yeah, that's insane. I mean, I don't know if maybe there's other spicier things he said somewhere that are, but this is enough to be like, no. Which people have given Trump shit about this before, where he's had people he's involved in diplomacy before, but he says glowing things about them, and they go, oh my god. And then Trump even recently in his one of his Ukraine Russia type spats, he said like, hey, I think it was in the blow up with Zelensky. They said something along the lines of like, what am I supposed to be, like a dick to this guy, essentially? Like in response to like, I think Zelensky saying something about him being nice to Putin. And you're like, yeah, I got to interact with this guy. It's the same thing here. Like why is it that, no, it's Hamas, so now you can't interact with them like they're human or interact with them like anyone would with someone that you were engaging into diplomacy with. So when asked if there would be further talks with Hamas, he said, you never know. Sometimes you're in the area and you drop by. I like this guy personally. Like, this is pretty dope. Like, they're like, you never know. Sometimes you're there and you drop by. That's pretty dope. Especially knowing when asked that was probably like a fuck you to Israel. Oh, yeah, which there was stories on this recently too. Why this is so partially so interesting is one, the new idea of actually engaging with Hamas, which is insane. Oh my god, why would you actually directly engage with the people you're in engagements with?
Yeah, you're attempting to negotiate.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so that's yeah, so he clearly, there were other stories on this, where he was getting shit and his responses, and so he's been pretty pissy. I don't think I actually covered one of those articles, but I almost covered one of the articles that was just on his responses to some of his statements, because he said other statements along these lines of just kind of like, hey, they're people, we're interacting with them, blah blah blah, and then also kind of some of the responses like I just showed you. Of like, hey, we're not an agent of Israel. Like, we have, stuff like essentially pushing back against Israel, kind of like, hey, we're grown-ups and we'll do what we want. We're not your vassal state. Like, he's made statements like that. And this is the fallout of it. Bowler further angered Israeli officials by speaking to Channel 12 News, telling the broadcaster that there have been positive developments in negotiations with Hamas. The U.S.-Hamas talks, which in part focus on securing the release of Israeli captives with U.S. citizenship from the Gaza Strip, frustrated Israel from their onset, but Bowler's comments to CNN made things worse. Israeli officials lambasted the envoy. Anyone who quotes Hamas and negotiates with them directly is making a huge error, one that endangers the hostages, said Knesset member Simcha Rothman. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel, why can't I say his first name? Bezalel Smotrich, whatever the fuck, Smotrich. You guys know, you probably heard me say Smotrich. He's kind of one of the most evil motherfuckers over there. So just know Smotrich. That's all you know. His name is literally like some fucking biblical demon. His first name, and maybe that's why I can't say it. But he said Bowler was acting on his own accord, and he cannot speak on their behalf. After facing backlash following his CNN interview, the envoy said, "I want to be crystal clear, as some have misinterpreted. Hamas is a terrorist organization that has murdered thousands of innocent people. They are by definition bad people, and as Trump has said, not a single Hamas member will be safe if Hamas doesn't release all hostages interview." So this is, I believe, or immediately. Now I believe this is him again. You're saying the envoy, implying him. So, I mean, I don't know. This guy, I feel like I'm kind of like I feel this guy's pain. He's like, he really is like half a step away from just being like, listen here, you stupid fucks. Like, I couldn't be any clearer here. I'm not saying anything that should be in any way regarded as offensive. These are terrorists. I am negotiating with them.
Yeah, every single statement he's making is legitimately that straightforward. But
yes.
What I found interesting as well is that apparently he was involved as in Trump's initial administration, and happened to be the individual who was responsible for the Abraham Accords negotiations. So I didn't realize that he had such long-standing ties to the diplomatic efforts involved in Gaza.
Okay, so you're saying he was an Abraham Accords guy? I'm assuming he was like maybe like a junior member or something at that point.
No, he helped lead talks during Trump's first term.
Okay.
And previously suggested a U.S. military operation for the hostages held by Hamas. But he, in the original administration, he helped apparently, here it is. During Trump's first term, he helped to lead U.S. talks with the Taliban, as well as negotiations between Israel and several Muslim nations that resulted in the Abraham Accords normalization agreements. That's interesting. I didn't realize he had such long-standing ties to the administration, you know?
Yeah, this is odd.
Kushner's connection, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if you, I want to say we talked about this in Already Dead. Maybe we didn't. I don't know if you saw about the deputy DNI who got turned away because of statements about Israel, which weren't really that bad either, which were kind of common sense things. His were actually, I'll give it a little bit of credit. These were a little bit beyond the pale of what that people will be willing to accept today. I'm not saying it's offensive. The things he said were, I thought were kick ass. He made statements along the lines of like, how the fuck are we supposed to, back up? Like, they're essentially making the point that they're a moral hazard to us. Like, probably the best example is the other day I was going into how they apparently it's been reported that we had a behind the back deal against Lebanon with Israel, saying essentially we would allow them to continue to break the ceasefire deal. That was an agreed upon deal. It's like it's this kind of shit that he's getting at. Like, how are you supposed to interact like this on the world stage and then have any sort of goodwill with any of your neighbors whatsoever when you behave like this?
You have zero credibility.
Yeah.
But do you think that they put forward some of these like seemingly good, more in the line of good faith candidates, as like a way to appease certain groups of people, like psychologically, and
like it's a setup, slap down,
doomed to fail?
Yeah, it could be. You're like, hey, we're gonna do something cool. We're gonna have you talk to Hamas. We're gonna set you up for a big fall, which that kind of ties into a later story. I mean, you weren't here yesterday, but we're probably gonna get into some of the swatting stuff recently, and this feels like a big ole InfoWar theater to me. So I don't know. We'll get into that. I had a point that I was bringing that back to, but I completely lost it. But anyways, yeah, no, that would. That's an interesting idea. I mean, especially considering that, like, at least specifically this guy, considering he was like he's like Kushner's old college roommate. It's kind of like, oh, it makes sense. You would be an easy guy to get involved in this level of theater, to be like, hey, whatever, then on the sly later he gets hooked up, or whatever. Because like, yeah, I guess this might be you could say, oh, this is a bad look for him professionally, but you're like, not really, not when it's the boss that's setting it up. You know what I mean? You're like, no, I think you'll get hooked up later. You'll be all right. So, yeah. On this front, while we're kind of still talking about Israel, this one's really short. This isn't an article full on, but just kind of, this is once again reminding you who our greatest ally is. This is Dave DeCamp saying, WAFA reports an Israeli quadcopter drone killed a 3-year-old near Gaza City today, and this was yesterday. It says, March 13th, 2025, Israeli occupation forces Thursday evening killed a Palestinian minor in the Shujaiya neighborhood east of Gaza City, according to local sources. They said that an Israeli remote-controlled quadcopter directly opened fire on civilians in the El Mintar area of the neighborhood, killing 3-year-old Amjad Hazim Abed. They added that an Israeli combat drone opened fire on a female in Beit Hanun town in the northern strip, injuring her. So, was it the saying from 1984 is like, imagine the future, it's like a boot stepping on your face. Yeah. Imagine the future, just little kid in front of it, and then just flying off. That's the future. That's what that is. Yeah. So
honestly, man, like that, and then the footage that that we've seen over the course of the Ukrainian conflict, it's just like, my God, man, modern warfare is extraordinarily terrifying. And then it is very interesting as far as the classification of the Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, and the comments about it potentially being some sort of precedent-setting operation to run domestic, as far as targeting attacks on these cartels deemed terrorists within the confines of the U.S. And so the idea was this could be a precedent-setting notion to greenlight drone strikes domestically. It's possible.
yeah,
And that notion alone is just dystopian as hell. You know what I mean? And I forget the number, but there's a extraordinary statistic for during the ceasefire how many drone strikes have killed civilians in Gaza. I read it yesterday. I can't remember what it was, but
yeah, it's a lot,
man.
Yeah, I mean, it was they've only covered the stories twice because it's kind of odd going to individual deaths, but it is unique. The futuristic murder over there is kind of weird. Like there was this story that I've covered, I believe, in the morning show, and there was also the story with the what was it, like the aid workers that literally like this fucking drone just kind of right down to their fucking vehicle, just blew away and then fucking flew off. Just fucking, it was something like I want to say like 4 to 8 or something in that realm, like multiple guys just chilling in an aid truck and then just blown away, just moves on. Wild. All right, let's get into what's going on in Ukraine Russia front. I know you have some information on that we'll get into after this. So this is Putin signals he's open a ceasefire as Witkoff arrives for talks. Russian President Vladimir Putin has signaled that he's open to a ceasefire in Ukraine, but that he has questions about the 30-day U.S.-Ukraine proposal that needs to be discussed. The idea itself is the right one, and we definitely support it, Putin said, according to the New York Times. But there are questions that we need to discuss, and I think we need to talk them through with our American colleagues and partners. The Russian leader listed potential conditions for a 30-day truce, including a guarantee that Ukraine wouldn't be supplied with more weapons, which we just recontinued recently in the last day or two, intel and military aid. So we also want guarantees, but I will say the fact that we were cut off both of those things and in separate occasions, they weren't both at the same time. I think it shows a willingness to do it. So that, hey, that's cool. That's something. I mean, they shouldn't do in the first place, but we also want guarantees that during the 30-day ceasefire, Ukraine will not conduct mobilization, will not train soldiers, and will not receive weapons, he said, according to RT. Putin also questioned who would monitor the ceasefire, who will determine where, and who has violated a potential ceasefire agreement along a 2,000-kilometer line. Who will attribute blame for any violations? These are all questions that require thorough examination from both sides, he said. It's funny. That would be typically, you'd be like, oh, well, the U.S. would work here. But, like, I don't know, if you're a smart person on the international stage and you've been paying attention to our interactions with other, sovereign states, you might go, I don't know if that's someone I want to interact with. The Russian leader said any long-term peace deals need to address the root causes of the war. He made the comments as U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Russia to discuss the proposal. Yuri Ushakov, the Kremlin official, said Witkoff would be holding a closed-door meeting with Putin. Ushakov also said the U.S.-Ukraine proposal would only give Ukraine a chance to regroup, and it would need to be adjusted to meet Moscow's interests. As for the 30-day temporary ceasefire, what is it about? There's nothing in it for us. It will only provide the Ukrainians with the opportunity to regroup and gain strength to continue doing what they're doing, he said, according to Russia's TASS news agency. These are some hasty actions that do not benefit a long-term settlement. We will need to work on it, to think it over so it reflects our position too. It reflects only Ukraine's stance at this point, he added. Ushakov said that Russia wanted a long-term peace deal and the official Russian position on the U.S.-Ukraine proposal would be formulated by Putin. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made similar comments opposing the idea of a temporary ceasefire, pointing to the Minsk Accords, which were first reached in 2014 for a truce in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. Lavrov also mentioned the Istanbul Agreement, referring to a peace deal that was on the table in March and April 2022, which was discouraged by the U.S. and its allies, which is a key point there. That's the one that old, what's-his-face, the fucking fat fucking... that fat fuck from England said not to do. I forget his name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. God, fucking goofball. He's like a fucking an even more dysgenic Trump is what he is. I don't even know what his name is.
Yeah, Boris Johnson.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I'm talking about the Minsk Accords, a deal that was discarded after the 2014 coup and the Istanbul agreements. All those included ceasefire, and every time it turned out they lied to us. The Ukrainians lied with the support of their European partners.
Yep.
Joint statement between the U.S. and Ukraine that was released after talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday said that Ukraine had expressed readiness to accept the U.S. proposal to enact an immediate interim 30-day ceasefire, which can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties and which is subject to acceptance and concurrent implementation by the Russian Federation. Statement also said that the U.S. had resumed military aid and intelligence sharing for Ukraine, which was briefly paused. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that if Russia doesn't accept the 30-day proposal, the U.S. would then know who the impediment to peace is, signaling he wants the proxy war to continue as usual if a deal isn't reached. So once again, why do we have that fucker there? But yeah, all right.
Yeah, I think this is something that crossed my radar yesterday as far as a potential reason that the ceasefire is being called for in this moment is very convenient timing for the West and Zelensky, and just honestly, as far as like they're not in a strong position to negotiate in this moment as far as militarily, which is something that I think is outside the purview of the media and their ability to interpret a lot of this or their willingness, because I think they're just more so given their talking points and run with the script, right? But but what I find very strange is that apparently there's this there was a covert special forces operation in Russia as far as this military special forces operation that was apparently ran throughout January, and it's called the pipeline raid of Sudza, and it's like in short the Brotherhood pipeline system, which apparently throughout this war in Ukraine, these natural gas pipelines, this one specifically, the Brotherhood pipeline, was still pumped through this pipeline system from Russia via Ukraine to Hungary and Slovakia. And I'll show you a picture. It's very interesting because it seems as if, and this from Moon of Alabama, this is the Brotherhood pipeline, right?
Okay.
But it's very interesting as far as like the convenient calls for the ceasefire, because apparently as Russia gained ground in Kursk due to this special forces operation where they essentially drain this natural gas pipeline and they send over 800 special forces operatives through this natural gas pipeline. When they
No, to back up. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just trying to get a grip of the situation here.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a Ukrainian pipeline or Russian pipeline, or what, did I miss that specific point? I'm assuming is this Russian?
So
I mean, it goes to Ukraine, as we can see here. It's an interesting graph, by the way, because you see the Nord Stream here. It kind of gives you an example of why it's so important. You can see it directly connects from Germany through Russia, so it kind of makes sense. But now then we have these other pipelines. But now the Brotherhood one, this one goes right through Ukraine into the ocean, comes through Romania and some other places, eventually comes to Poland. But essentially the key point is that it goes right through Ukraine, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this a Russian pipeline that they own, or is this a Ukrainian pipeline?
Well, let's see. The pipeline rate, essentially it's, let me see, because I know for a fact that it was, hold on, I just pulled it up.
Or it might be more complicated than that. It might not be owned by a country like that. You know what I mean?
Right. But let's see. The Uzhhorod pipeline, Irengoy, Pomeri, Uzhhorod pipeline, one of Russia's main natural gas export pipelines, partially owned and operated by Ukraine. So there you go. It was part of the Gas in Exchange for Pipes program. And let's see. And the Soviet-controlled bank Ost-West Handelsbank was opened in Frankfurt on March 1st, 1973. Okay, so Russia stopped exporting through this pipeline at the end of 2024 as Ukraine did not renew the contract. Interesting.
Okay, so Ukraine didn't renew a contract on it. Okay.
Yeah, but so it's partly owned by Ukraine.
But
Yeah.
and then to get back to it, Russia has been siphoning gas off there. I just want to make sure I'm clear about who's doing what. So it sounds like Russia has been siphoning gas off of this pipeline, essentially fucking over Ukraine in some way. I'm assuming.
Well, according to this Moon of Alabama story, it says at the beginning of the year, the government of Ukraine decided to close this connection, ending the contract. It shut off the valves on Ukrainian ground. This event will be marked the end of the Ukrainian incursion into the Kursk region of Russia. The map shows the Ukrainian held ground in Russia as of January 1st. It includes the city of Sutsa and some 20 Russian hamlets and villages. The Brotherhood pipeline system consists of 5 parallel tubes with a diameter of 1.4 meters. These run roughly parallel to the 34,000 road H07 in Ukraine from Kursk southwestwards, passing north of Sutsa on towards Sumy in Ukraine. The pipes are buried in the ground due to vegetation disturbances. The buried pipelines are visible in satellite pictures. Now, sometime after January 1st, the Russian command responsible for the area developed a plan to use the pipeline system to attack the Ukrainian enemy from behind. So it's literally they pop up on the other side of the fucking pipeline in Ukrainian territory behind enemy lines, and they trap
I'm seeing
all these
it now.
Ukrainian soldiers, bro. Right? And so they put them in a trap. And this is why what's so strange about this is that Putin says that he doesn't see how a 30-day ceasefire would be beneficial because it makes no sense to a point where multiple large cauldrons of Ukrainian troops are cut off now behind enemy lines due to this covert pipeline operation successfully conducted by Russian special forces. And these Ukrainian troops are now on the verge of being captured. So in principle, Putin claims he's in favor of having a ceasefire, but due to the experience of the last previous ceasefire negotiated, which ultimately, as you said, resulted in nothing more than a rearming of Ukraine by Germany and other European countries, it is likely the exact same thing would happen this time.
Yeah.
He did hint he's open to a ceasefire if those troops that he has now cut off from retreating would surrender rather than rearm the Ukrainian troops.
Well, that makes sense. It just puts him in a better. I mean, a lot of people are like, "Oh, why would he?" But I mean, he still might want a ceasefire. He's just in a much better position because, I mean, that's the thing is, fucking Rubio being like, "Oh, we can see who's an impediment to peace." But you're like, okay, well, you need to see the real reality on the ground. If you have Ukraine coming to you and say, "Hey, we want a ceasefire," and you're like, "Dude, we are like killing it right now," like, okay, well, like, sure, maybe, but like, I'm about to take over this city, that city. Like, I'm about to take a bunch of ground, and you're saying shit like, "Oh, we can do a ceasefire, but you got to give me back all my land," which I guess has been like a sticking point still for Ukraine. You're like, dude, you are in no position to be asking for your land back whatsoever. You're in a position to be begging for your fucking life. So, like, that is, which is kind of the situation of the Ukrainian military. So, I mean, this might be a bad thing because now it's actually putting them even in worse position, and then putting them in even worse negotiating position where they're going to be more likely to be like, "This is unacceptable," and they do this thing where they go, "Oh, what? We're just going to let Russia take land, or we're just going to let Russia? We're just going to," and you're like, "Yeah, what's the alternative? Like, what is you like? This is the reality on the ground. These are the options you're given, and you need to make a choice. And the longer you drag your ass, the worse it's going to get." So.
Right.
I mean, this idea that you're just going to be indignant and be like, well, that guy won't accept my ceasefire deal. Like, well, then you need to sweeten the pot because, like, he's in a much better negotiating position than you are. Is what this was. And man, this shows they're even more of a better position than we thought they were already, and we knew they were in a good one. So
exactly, I'll finish this with just a couple of additional details because I thought the details of this operation are fascinating, man. Like, just to see how they function on the ground. But yeah, so it looks like they drained the natural gas from the pipes of the Brotherhood pipeline system around the 1st of January. Oxygen was pumped into it. And so some 15 kilometers or 10 miles northeast of Sutsa, an access hole was cut into the pipeline. Soldiers were sent into the pipeline to reconnaissance it, but there was still some natural gas and too little oxygen in the pipeline, so the first soldiers fainted and had to be rescued. After weeks of work, the pipeline was usable, as a covered passageway towards Sudsa.
I think they just use gas masks.
They did apparently, but
It was still too strong.
Still too
I mean, maybe
strong,
it may not be rated for like filtering out gasoline or something. I don't know.
True, yeah. And I'm not sure how natural gas pipelines even function. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's very, very. But
I mean, you are moving through more of a liquid because, like the well, sort of, not really. It's a gas, but it's very aqueous, I guess. So so I could see how it'd be too thick for something like that. But sorry, go on.
You're good, man. Drawn from 5 different military units, a force of 800 men was assembled and prepared for this mission. During the first 2 months of the year, the Ukrainian forces had already lost ground on the western side of their incursion area. The general situation had gotten worse after the Russian forces gained fire control via drones. Dude, that's what I was suggesting during the LA fires. I was like, they're potentially directing the path of these fires through drone warfare, technically. I mean, imagine starting it through directed energy weapons and then guiding it with drone operators. Hey, it's possible, man. I mean, it's not at all outside of the realm of possibility when you know how they function at a military level. But yeah, so these drones are providing fire control and also drones over the only larger supply route from Sumy to Sudza. So videos from the road showed dozens of wrecked and burned out vehicles, but the Ukrainian lines in Sudza were still holding. In early March, Russia commandos entered the pipeline along the arrow above. So apparently right here. They used it to get to the north of the industrial zone of Sudza, started to cut exit holes, and dug through the ground covering the pipeline. Some 800 soldiers followed and settled down within the pipeline. On March 8th, when the command was given, the Russian commandos exited the pipeline and entered nearby woods. They moved on to blockade the 34,000 004 road. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Crossed it and entered the northern part of the industrial zone of Sudza. There they could dig in. No larger Ukrainian units were in the immediate area. No one could stop the move. So this is the exit point and attack route that they took. And apparently hearing reports on their radios of enemies in their back, the Ukrainian soldiers panicked. Every unit northeast and east of Sudza was cut off from supplies. There was no way to retreat. At the same time, the Russian army attacked in the west and north of the Ukrainian-held area. Resistance soon collapsed. Those who could retreat to Sudza did so. From there, they tried to move back to Ukraine. So it looks like within one day, the Ukrainian-held area had shrunk by half. The Russians recaptured and cleared a total of 12 settlements, and current reports say that the Ukrainian forces within Russia are in full retreat along roads under permanent fire. And this is why you have the media saying that Putin said, surrender or die.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they're claiming and that's the framework of this. But called Operation Art. The operation is a wonderful demonstration of what the Russians call operational art. Okay. It connects the details of tactics with the goals of the strategy. All right.
Yeah, they're just saying
that is a hell of a special forces operation, though, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, I'll give them that.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously war bad, but like, that's kind of cool.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, geez. Okay, well let's move on to the Jack Texeira story. I wanted to take a little time to put a little shine on this little patriot here. Patriotic whistleblower explains in court why he leaked secret Pentagon docs about Ukraine. So here's this young feller here, Jack Texeira, real American hero, Massachusetts Air National Guard member who caused an international uproar when he leaked highly classified documents about the war in Ukraine, pled guilty to military charges of obstructing justice at his court-martial Thursday and called himself a proud patriot. In a 10-minute address, Texeira said he was exposing and correcting the lies that were perpetrated by President Biden and force-fed to the American people about the war in Ukraine. I believe the DOJ was politicized against President Trump and myself, added Texeira, who said he acted alone. He called on Trump and members of his administration to reverse his convictions. If I saved one American, Russian, or Ukrainian life in this money-grabbing war, my punishment was worth it, he said. The plea agreement calls for dishonorable discharge and no jail time. The judge approved the plea agreement but had not addressed his sentencing yet, which was expected to occur later Thursday afternoon. He pled guilty to the obstruction charge, admitting that he used a hammer to destroy a cell phone, a computer hard drive, and an iPad after seeing some news reports of the leaked documents. He also admitted to telling his friend to destroy messages exchanged on a communication app. I was scared about a potential law enforcement investigation to me and my friends, he said in court. As the sentencing phase began, Texeira's parents said he took an early interest in the military as a child. His father, also named Jack Texeira, described him as a good kid, energetic, intelligent, and quirky. When his son decided to join the military, I was excited about it, the elder Texeira said. It was a good option for Jack. He said it gave him direction and the chance to see the world. He made a mistake, his mother, Dawn Default, said. Everyone makes mistakes. He's my son. I love him. He deserves a second chance. Thursday's military tribunal hearing comes after Texeira was already sentenced in federal court last year to 15 years in prison. In federal court, he pled guilty to 6 counts of willful retention and transmission of national defense information under the Espionage Act, following his arrest in the most consequential national security breach in years. Among other revelations, Texeira's disclosures show that the U.S. has boots on the ground in Ukraine. The Biden administration spied on Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that the war there was going worse for Ukraine than officials were saying publicly, while shoveling more than $100 billion toward that effort. The leaked document also revealed assessments of the defense capabilities of Taiwan and internal arguments in Britain, Egypt, Israel, South Korea, and Japan. Texeira also admitted to posting information about a U.S. adversary's plans to harm U.S. forces serving overseas. Texeira worked as an information technology specialist responsible for military communications networks. His lawyers described Texeira as an autistic, isolated individual who spent most of his time online, especially with his Discord community, and never meant to harm the United States. Instead of being hailed as a whistleblower for exposing Biden's lies and malfeasance, mainstream media outlets and Democratic politicians have accused him of being a traitor. The New York Times and government-funded publication Bellingcat went as far as to help the FBI identify Texeira as the alleged leaker. Since then, the FBI has reportedly been visiting the homes of people who posted stories about the leaked Pentagon documents in an intimidating attempt to remove such content from the internet. The judge presiding over his case also issued an unconstitutional order for reporters and other third parties to destroy Texeira's sentencing memorandum, which was apparently inadvertently filed on a public court document when it was supposed to be sealed. The judge rescinded her unconstitutional order a day later. So all this just to remind you guys that Texeira, this is a real American hero. If you want to see a real patriot, a real if you like, this is what a real man, a real patriot, a real, someone who like the vibe that when people join the military and this whole like this wholesome idea that's usually thrown out by the establishment. They're like, oh, look at these, they're going to go fight for their country to protect everyone around them and stuff. That impetus, that actual wholesome impetus that is manipulated by the military and used to kill innocents. That impetus is more. I don't think it's any better, shown than in someone like Jack Texeira. So, I mean, with that, like, I guess that's really all. I just wanted to remind you guys about him and just kind of, it's a real patriot there. That's someone who really, really wants to help their country. So,
I agree. I find it very, it's kind of a sloppy take as far as the perspective that I've seen levied against Texeira as far as his wanting to impress his Discord buddies. Like how could you imagine putting your entire future at risk to leak documents you don't actually give a shit about and have no real ethical obligation? It makes absolutely no sense if you're really thinking it through. Autistic, that's interesting in itself. I mean, right? Like,
unsurprising, but
very unsurprising. Exactly. I mean, I'm sure he would be fun to kick it with and have a conversation. Honestly, it's very much like the Ross Ulbricht thing, right? As far as just a lot of these individuals come off that way. like they're on the spectrum to some degree, but they seem as if they're timid in nature and really have some sort of ethical values that are worthwhile, which would be the reason you would blow the whistle in that context. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I agree, brother. I think he's most likely he's a hero. And most likely SBF will get a pardon before Texeira, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, he just went on Carlson wasn't the vibe. I didn't watch the whole thing. I only watched a tiny bit for the show because they talked about the effective altruism shit or whatever. So we heard them talk about. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I from what I've heard, I guess the push was kind of like pushing for an appeal. So now it almost seems like the supposed quote unquote good people, they're like in line with us, or supposed to be. I mean, it depends on whether you trust Tucker or not. It's almost like they're realigning to kind of behind SBF, but maybe I also didn't watch the whole interview, so maybe I'm misinterpreting this. So, but that's what I've kind of seen parroted by other people. So, although people parrot retarded shit all the time, so I don't know how legit that is.
But during the time, I remember when the huge scandal was taking place and FTX was going bottom up, essentially I remember that Monica did a really good deep dive as far as covering his connections and his parents' connections and how essentially the effective altruism philosophy came from a CIA operative. And it's like an old boys network CIA operative. I'm trying to recall which individual who is tied directly to him. I'll bring it to the show soon, but it's something worthwhile because I remember covering that. Will McCaskill covered this to some extent as well, as far as the FTX SBF debacle. But it's very interesting because there is definitely a CIA operative who's behind the philosophy that ran FTX.
It totally checks out. I've been feeling it. We've on this show, the Zizians, the fucking Sam Bankman-Fried, Luigi Mangione. There's so many, and there's other ones I'm not coming to the fore right now, but there's multiple that are like connected to this rationality community that kind of sprouts out into effective altruism, Zizians, this, that. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I've been kind of like, man, sensing the glow for a while. I just haven't. So that kind of is exactly kind of what I would assume. By the way, JMS is kind of, I guess, saying that is making it sound like maybe I mischaracterized it, which is fair. As I said, I may have. He said Tucker just talked to him and laughed at him. Okay, all right, then I guess maybe that's the case. Maybe he just thought it'd be interesting to have SBF on. So.
It's very strange, man.
I'm not a big fan of the whole platform thing. I don't know. He's putting on a show.
No,
whatever
I'm
you
only
get.
Saying, why the fuck would Tucker Carlson be talking to Sam Bankman-Fried?
Yeah,
and giving him an opportunity to call for a pardon, man.
Yeah, I'd have to re-listen to it.
Staged opportunity.
Yeah, I'd have to listen to the whole thing to have a strong opinion. I guess I just don't like have that coming off of that opinion. Even then, just now I caveated a bunch before I came to it. But it's like, because I was like, I don't know. I mean, it could just be, I could totally see, I don't know how many shows he's doing a week these days, if it's just one, but I could totally see, be like, SBF? Yeah, fuck it, whatever, book him. It's a he's doing a guest thing, he's doing an interview thing. So, but yeah, anyways,
he's touring. He's touring, attempting to get a pardon.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to watch it. You might be right. You might be right. This is just, they're hooking him up. I have no idea. So
I just have no reason to trust Tucker Carlson.
Oh yeah, I am 100% on there with you. I just don't like to assume people's motives, or try not to, unless I have good reason to. And I don't know specifically on him having SBF on there. That's why I caveat. Like, that's what I've heard. Other people aping this. I don't know if it's true. I'd have to watch the whole interview to see what the angle was with him, because he did the little bit I saw. He pushed back a little bit. Obviously we're talking about effective altruism. He clearly was kind of like nicely being like, "This is retarded."
Oh my god.
JMS here says the military attracts the most principled and those who want to look the most principled. It's a very good way to put it. Yes. So that's a Texeira. Seems to fall in the former. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get into another story. Here's one I found right before that I thought was particularly interesting. This is from X, actually. But there's some. This is Odessa activist Demyan Ganul assassinated. Demyan Ganul, a known Ukrainian nationalist with ties to the 2014 Odessa Trade Union house fire, which I'm not sure what that is. It sounds like almost like a Reichstag type thing. I would assume what the implication is here. He was assassinated in central Odessa on March 14th, 2025, which is today. The shooting occurred in the morning, with the assailant described as wearing a military uniform escaping the scene. The police are actively investigating this case, with Minister of Internal Affairs Ihor Klemenko personally overseeing the efforts to identify and apprehend the shooter. Now, I scrolled through some of these posts to try to get a vibe of this. This is the guy, ugly son of a bitch. This is Diana Panchenko, Junior Journalist of the Year in Ukraine. I don't know where she falls in this stuff, but this is her take on this. She said today he was shot dead. He was a member of the Zelensky team. He's been infamous since 2014, tied to the May 2nd events when dozens of Ukrainians were burned alive in Odessa, which I guess is that fire. I know. I was looking through some of this stuff to get a little more context. I didn't get a chance to look up the fire to get more information on that. But he attacked locals laying flowers for the victim. So I guess literally the people who burned alive, he attacked them. Once again, keep in mind this Diana chick is from Ukraine, so there might be a language barrier. So I don't know what they mean when they say attacked. Do they literally mean attacked? Do he mean verbally? Recently, he was fighting anyone who dared criticize mobilization. Fighting is in quotes here too, so once again, I'm not sure if they mean literally, physically or not. His most notorious stunt. This summer, he beat an Odessa fitness trainer for slamming the Zelensky commissars. The trainer disappeared. Word is he ended up in the AFU, tortured and likely raped. All of this while this guy never fought. He just stole protections and ran donations and ran protection rackets. So this is the kind of guy we're dealing with here, and someone came along and offed this guy. So I just find it particularly kind of interesting. This guy seems to be some sort of enforcer for Zelensky, is the impression I'm getting here. And this guy just got fucking offed. So here's another one. Odessa locals are now calling the shooter a hero and urging more action should be taken against Zelensky's conscription officers. Demyan Ganul, who was killed today, has been accused of instigating the Odessa 2014 massacre, forceful conscription, and rape and extortion. And here's, I'm assuming, a photo of the guy they think he did it, which, assuming this guy is pulling some V for Vendetta type shit here, fucking hats off, brother.
He looks like Taxi
fucking
Driver
dope,
or something,
right?
dude.
Yeah. This is wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had no idea that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's saying Ganul was a real Nazi. I don't know enough about this guy. I find this particularly interesting, especially given the role this guy plays. And because at first I was like, oh shit, like I heard, oh crap, assassination in Ukraine. I assumed it was likely Ukraine military off somebody or like some sort of person that's saying negative things about the Ukraine administration getting offed.
Yeah,
nope.
I am wondering if throughout the process of attempted de-escalation, if they truly do want some sort of end to this conflict.
That's true. This would be a good way to stop de-escalation. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you just have to say it's a Russian actor or something. We've heard those. Ooh, Russia. Like you could easily do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and other than that, I mean, you also have to keep in mind that from the Russian standpoint, Zelensky's on the outside. He's not going to be a part of anything going forward as far as like some future negotiated peace deal. I think the terms will be anyone but Zelensky, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that it'll have to be some sort of improved relationship dynamic as far as the individual that's put into place if there's going to be some sort of longstanding peace with Russia, and the agreement takes place. But I'm telling you, like, I see something. There's got to be some sort of consequence for Zelensky in the near future. Right? I mean,
he's not going to stay in power. There's no way in hell. There's been too much signaling. I just do not see him sticking around for any much longer at all. So, yeah.
Agreed, brother.
By the way, I just kind of quick quickly researched some stuff about this Odessa. Just quickly Googled, and I don't. I'm thinking maybe I might end up covering this soon because it looks like the vibe I'm getting here is like, oh, still no people don't know. Like, it's kind of like, oh, we don't know what really happened. But yeah, I guess fucking in a heavy on May 2nd, 2014, heavily armed. I'll just get real quick. I'm not going to do the whole thing here because I feel like this requires like an actual segment. But just kind of the quick little paragraph. May 2nd, 2014, heavily armed fascist militia forces attacked the House of Trade Unions in Odessa, Ukraine. Trapped inside were demonstrators opposed to the right-wing government in Kiev that had been put in place in a U.S.-orchestrated coup just weeks earlier. So they trapped these demonstrators that were opposing the right-wing government at that time in 2014. This militia force came in here, trapped them inside there, and essentially set this place ablaze. Which is
this during the Maidan?
It's 2014 Odessa Trade Union.
That sounds like it was during the Maidan Revolution.
Yeah, it must have been. But man, that's I didn't know about this. This is man. I'm trying to see how many people died. I'm trying to see how many people died just from this specifically. 39 burned alive, and so it looks like this guy might have some sort of something to do that.
2014.
Yeah,
Revolution of Dignity, the Maidan Revolution.
It's nuts.
So that was literally Victoria Nuland's mercenaries, right? That's 100%. That was the NGO-backed USAID mercenaries overthrowing the unelected government, even though it was technically the democratically elected government of Ukraine that was being overthrown. But that was when, dude, I think everyone should go back and listen again to that leaked conversation between Jeffrey Pyatt and Victoria Nuland, where she's saying we need to bring in Biden to midwife this thing and put a bow on it. And then Jeffrey Pyatt asks her about the EU, and she says, "Fuck the EU," right? It's just so blatant in as far as them discussing who they're. No, Klitschko, he's better on the outside. He's like, as far as the effect and influence that they can have in regard to these regime change operations and violent coup d'etats. So that is. Oh, and by the way, that falls perfectly in line with this story that I found yesterday.
Yeah.
About did you see this story about the court having to step in after USAID employees were ordered to shred and burn classified documents?
I didn't hear anything but a court stepping in, but obviously I've heard plenty of stories about supposedly documents being burned and this group, that group, this group, mostly FBI type stuff. But yeah.
Dude, apparently, a senior official at the U.S. Agency for International Development ordered the agency's remaining employees to destroy internal documents at the now former headquarters in Washington on Tuesday. And this email sent to staff set off a legal challenge on Tuesday. So employees were instructed to destroy the items in the agency's classified safes and personnel documents.
Real quick, Austin. Once again, I'm not trying to be. I'm about to go take a leak, but I'm going to listen to you while you keep going. So just know that I'm listening. I am hearing what you are saying, but I gotta go take a leak. So, but I'm going to put on my phone so I can listen to what you have to say, so I don't miss a beat.
Word. So basically, as I said just now, that these employees were instructed to destroy these items in the agency's classified safes and personnel documents on Tuesday at the Ronald Reagan building. According to this email sent by the agency's acting executive director, Erica Carr, which was obtained by the Washington Examiner, shred as many documents first and reserve the burn bags for when the shredder becomes available or needs a break. The email said, this is a quote, Carr instructed staff to label the burn bags with the words secret and USAID/B/IO, which is an agency abbreviation for Bureau of Independent Office or Independent Office. The email didn't provide any reason for the document destruction. Following news of the email, unions representing USAID workers and federal employees asked the judge to intervene on any destruction of classified documents. The American Federation of Government Employees and American Foreign Service Association alleged that Trump overstepped his authority by shuttering the independent agency established by Congress. That's so ridiculous. The plaintiffs asked U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols for a temporary restraining order to block the destruction of records and argued that the loss of vital information could prevent USAID from resuming operations if they prevail in the case. Nichols set a Wednesday morning deadline for both sides to submit a status report. Yeah, it's very interesting, though, and at the very least, it should have basically go without saying that you would imagine as the the doors, which of course USAID is still in action, and still active. It's not as if it's entirely been shuttered, but you would imagine that on their way out, a vast majority of these top secret files or anything that would be, of any real substance, exposing the inner workings of a lot of their clandestine operations internationally, would of course be destroyed. That is status quo. It's par for the course. You look at when the church committee hearings happened. What did Helms do? The first thing Richard Helms did was order the destruction of thousands and thousands of documents that would have probably held the most damning and right evidence proving what our intelligence apparatus is capable of, man. And so anyway, not at all surprised that this story.
But on a positive note, we're not going to pay any taxes anymore, Austin. Just as soon as he balances the budget, and assuming you don't make over $150,000 a year.
Dude, as you start this, as you lay out the groundwork of this story, I heard an interesting theory in regard to how he would attempt to balance the budget, right?
Oh yeah,
which I found interesting. That could include a stable coin. Right, so essentially it's a refinance.
We're gonna do it this time.
Yeah. No, basically it's due to his past in real estate. His it's all about essentially refinancing the debt in a certain way by essentially apparently.
Yeah, I talked about this in the show. I think we talked about it in the show once. There was this one, financial piece where they were talking about like restructuring the debt and all that, and it is just kind of moving pennies around, and that's really all it seemed to do, and more of a kicking the can down the road. Like they were also talking about like swapping out bonds that people had, and essentially swapping out to like 100-year bonds. So it's like. The reasoning being like, oh, well, like it'll be longer. So, that obviously we're able to hold on to those bonds longer so we don't lose, the money tied to the dollar or whatever the fuck. But it's like you're essentially sort of strong arming people into taking longer bonds as opposed to the shorter ones you had. And essentially the idea being like, oh, well, since there's, I think it's because there's less of them. Or I forget the specifics. And the idea, it's more in this mentality every time. And it seems to be, I don't think this is the first time this has happened. In past, it seems like I recall this in previous administrations where it's always like, oh, we're going to balance this or we're going to do that. And it's always like counting on the future of like, because, how we're going to solve this in the future, we're just going to like innovate so much. And so they're always counting on these like innovations in the future. They're like, this will be where the savings come down the line or whatever. Meanwhile, they just keep increasing spending. But real quick, I just wanted to kind of just, I'm just going to say it real quick. Breaking President Trump's plan to waive all taxes for Americans earning under $150,000 per year will take effect after he balances the budget, according to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Now, I didn't even realize this was being thrown out there. $150,000 per year, no taxes. I find that way too good to be true.
I know, right?
I mean, that'd be the coolest thing like ever. And like, I would, all the bad things I've said about Trump in the past week, I'd be like, what I say, whatever. I mean, just go ahead and keep on bombing Palestinians, like, whatever. But it's not happening. This is not happening. But I don't know, there were a lot of things I remember a while ago when some of the tax plans they were pushing forward that were kind of cool. So I don't know, who knows? Maybe we'll get a cool tax plan that it's slightly preferable. We're due for one. My taxes have been fucking rough lately. So, dude, like past like 5 years, been losing like thousands every time I do fucking taxes. Like, you fucking cunt. So, yeah.
Dude, I feel like it's far more likely that, we will... probably be apprehended for anti-Semitism by the task force before we no longer have to pay taxes. But who knows, buddy? Like I'm open for any optimism. I'm telling you that much, and any sort of cut in spending of any kind. Now, of course, I support that, but
Take it.
yeah. We consistently see that we are not cutting spending, and so of course we're right. It's just kind of like this illusion at this point being dangled in front of the population and the public for some sort of like political football to throw around. But yeah, in reality, I think it's a little too good to be true. I would absolutely rejoice though if that if that did actually take place, right? But anyway, who knows, buddy? We got so much happening in regard to what was it? Did you see apparently Boltzmann Booty he tweeted about this morning about federal agents involved in that anti-Semitism task force.
No,
apparently federal agents conducted their second raid at Columbia University dorms in 1 week. In an unprecedented move, federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security conducted late-night searches of 2 Columbia University dormitories Thursday evening. No arrests were made, and nothing was seized, according to an email from President Katrina Armstrong. The searches, authorized by a federal magistrate judge, allowed DHS agents to access private residencies on campus. By the way, watch this really quick. It's not very long, but it's something that it's like, look at their... Dude, her and what's his name, the other dude, speaker Mike Johnson.
Yeah,
they're fucking spicy on this anti-Semitism front tip, dude. Like, it's so interesting to see the way that they kind of approach the public here. It's very much kind of like.
We already watched this. I think yesterday.
Oh, did you watch it already?
Yeah, we watched
Dude,
this. Yeah, the
so
Mahmoud Khalil thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then right here, he's like so upset. Mike Johnson is, as far as the just the concept.
Mahmoud. How dare you come over here and support terrorists?
It's the craziest reaction in my mind. Just the way they kind of frame this in a way as if they are what's the word when you're punishing you're basically it's sort of condescending in a way, but in reality it's also they're
I know what word you're thinking of. I can't think of it either. Yeah, it's like they're school marming essentially. I don't know.
Exactly.
Not the right word you're looking for, but close enough.
But when you realize, and this is my last statement on this anti-Semitism task force, because it is worthwhile understanding what is actually taking place here. I mean,
it's weird.
Beyond an affront to obviously inherent constitutional rights. I mean, that are supposed to be upheld.
Even if you are defending this on a constitutional basis, you're at best. I'm no constitutional scholar, but at best, you're arguing that he's not a citizen, so it doesn't apply to him, and that or they're not a citizens, or they don't have constitutional rights, or like say with the raids on the dorms in the technically those are university property. They're technically allowed to do that. I mean, it is a little bit of a weird gray area that you're getting federal individuals to start searching rooms on a. I know it's but my point being is like, if you're arguing that these things are like okay, but only because they're in these because it's say on someone who's not an American, then you're just all you're saying is like, oh, well, natural rights are only cool when they apply to citizens or I don't know. It's just such a silly way to look at it, because it's like the whole concept of the supposed to be, obviously we know it's kind of a coup and they're trying to control us and blah blah, but the whole points of God, I totally lost my fucking point. What were
inherent and alienable rights? That is
yes,
right?
yeah, there you go. That's what I was getting.
They're God-given, allegedly.
Yes,
right?
And so if your argument is they're not covered, but the spirit of this document is it's supposed to apply to everyone. And I get it. There's certain things this has to do with immigration, this and that, but come on, this is you're literally with Mahmoud. It's the idea is it's because it's sort of a gray area constitutionally. Even then, I think I would assume that it's probably just straight up unconstitutional. But let's say it is constitutional. It's because of a gray area, because he's an immigrant. This is clearly only going against him because of speech. I mean, maybe there's some statements I heard otherwise, but he's not even like, no one's even claiming he committed any crimes. So,
And by the way, I read an article by The Intercept that claimed that ICE secretly hauled Mahmoud Khalil to Louisiana in some sort of retaliation effort, which I found very interesting. But
I don't know anything about retaliation, but they did bring him to Louisiana, which is bizarre. Like, why the fuck are we going to Louisiana?
They claim by moving the campus activists to a new jurisdiction, ICE disrupted the court proceedings and limited his legal access, according to his attorneys. But this is article ran in The Intercept, so Pierre Omidyar is of course the owner of this publication, but occasionally they still do legitimate journalism. But still, it's very interesting to realize that not only is he's I find it very strange that he's a lawful U.S. resident married to an American citizen, and and is just transferred out to Louisiana here in some sort of political motive, to sort of derail his his attempt at having some sort of fair hearing and right. But agents ignored the pleas of Khalil's wife, who tried to show them legal papers proving her husband was a green card holder. They wouldn't heed her request to share where they were taking him, according to court filings. Eventually, one of the agents offered a terse response. Check the local immigration court at 26 Federal Plaza in Manhattan. By next morning, however, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement detainee locator indicated Khalil was no longer in New York. Instead, it showed him at the Elizabeth Detention Center in New Jersey. When Khalil's wife visited the jail, she was turned away. Without warning to Khalil's wife or his immigration attorney, Amy Greer, who the same morning had filed a petition to challenge her client's arrest as a violation of his First Amendment free speech rights, ICE agents had transferred Khalil to a different facility. This time, they moved him thousands of miles south of his New York home to a facility in Louisiana. It wasn't until Monday morning that Khalil's exact whereabouts were updated in the ICE online system. The La Salle Detention Facility in Jena, Louisiana, a private jail operated by the GEO Group. GEO Group. Have to look into that. And then it says attorneys for Khalil alleged the move from the New York metropolitan area to Louisiana was a retaliatory transfer intended to restrict his access and to lawyers and family, and to position what has grown into a closely watched First Amendment case in a jurisdiction more friendly to the Trump administration's anti-immigrant policies. Interesting. So I'm sure, it's a political move. It makes sense.
It's probably get thrown out too. I think I've already gone a little bit of legal stuff. It looks like it's already on shaky grounds. It's probably going to get thrown out. But either way, it's just the idea that they're going to do it. And I think I've said this bromide a few times already. The idea of that, like, say with the Biden administration, when they were pushing through those OSHA mandates and those ended up getting thrown out in the courts. It's kind of like, I mean, this is it very much seems like a similar situation here, but it's like it's just shitty, because it's like, let's be real, you have enough common sense between the Biden administration and the Trump administration here that these are probably legally dubious at best. And if they're legally dubious, you should probably really start going back to first principles and think about it. And I just really do not like this idea of this constant, we'll just push it out there and we'll see if the courts kick it back. Because it's like all you're doing is fishing for unconstitutionality. That's all you're doing.
Exactly.
There should be, it's a slow boil. Yeah. You should be charged. If we're able to show and they'll be like, well, I'm ignorant. I don't give a shit. Like, you're an elected official and your job is to protect the Constitution.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not even actually necessarily really calling for that, because as soon as that starts getting fucking applied, then it gets applied negatively. It's kind of the same idea whenever we see impeachment. It's never because they actually broke the Constitution. It's because, he didn't give enough money to Ukraine or something. It's shit like that. But
they're consistently pushing the concept of allowable opinion at all times as well, and in the wrong direction. And that's a part of this as well, I think. And,
Speaking of allowable opinion, there has been I don't even really know how this ties into allowable opinion, aside from, I guess, kind of InfoWars. I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. I kind of became an asshole because I totally forgot about the fact that one of the guys in the InfoWars circle died. So just to kind of recap, I guess there was one of the reporters supposedly got shot, and then it seemed like right after that, one of the InfoWars reporters, we covered this on the show yesterday. I covered it in a weird order because I was covering it about how Chase Geyser, I believe yesterday, was talking about how he got swatted, and then I kind of went into you caught that? You caught it on the show?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, yeah. So you saw how I accidentally kind of became an asshole, and it was kind of like maybe he's talking shit, and then I was like, oh shit, one of his coworkers died. But either way, I still kind of sort of stand by that, and then I don't even have any negative will towards this guy. But it's just kind of from what I've seen, he's the kind of person that wouldn't surprise. He would be the exact type of person that would be like, oh, you need me to play some kayfabe for the team? Okay. That's exactly, because he is someone who's kind of artificially rose through the ranks. Like he literally was I can't remember if it was views, subscribers, Twitter followers, some combination. It was one of those things that once you're skilled at looking at metrics, you can look and go, these metrics are fucky. You can tell because X doesn't get this specific amount of, whether it's subscribers or views, you're like, these things don't match up. And it was very clear, but he was able to artificially inflate his numbers long enough till where he got hired by somebody else where it doesn't matter what his actual real numbers are. He essentially bought some social credit, I guess you could say. And that's what secured him a job at InfoWars. So he doesn't really have who that guy that I'm referring to has 300,000 followers, a show on InfoWars. I don't think he really has that amount of political capital or social capital is the word I'm looking for. Because of what I just pointed, he never really organically grew. It was he essentially grew to where people saw, oh look, number big, and then an entity go, oh, someone with number big, we hire. That's all it was. So, but here we go. We have conservative podcaster Sean Farash swatted, who, funny enough, this is another guy. Well, no, I say another. Once again, I guess I'm accidentally grouping him with Chase. I'm not grouping him with Chase. I'm just saying this is another person. You're like, who? I keep saying another. This is a different person that you're like, what the fuck is up with this guy? I don't know really anything about this guy. The only thing I know about him is he was literally on Misfit Patriots, Mr. Patriots stream the other day. And the only reason I know this is because we were fucking with him on Tower Gang for fun.
Right? Yeah, that's what I saw. Tower Gang's in a feud right now.
Not even. I don't even remember why it came up. We were goofing. We were talking about it, and then we were like, oh shit, he's live right now. And then we were just watching it and making jokes and then sending our audience over there. We 4x'd his audience by fucking said just on a joke, sending our people over there to fuck with him.
Oh my God.
But anyways, this guy was on that show. I don't know anything. I looked this guy. I think he's another guy with 300,000 followers, but you're like, I don't know anything about this guy, even though he's supposedly humongous. I mean, he was also on a podcast that they were getting kind of, honestly, I mean, I'm not even shit talking. They were getting around our level of numbers on just kind of a normal daily show. And this is somebody who has 60,000 followers on Twitter. That's Misfit, Mr. Patriot or whatever. And then Sean Farash has something, I want to say around 300,000, but yet they're only pulling in 30 live viewers on a Rumble podcast. So just kind of, to my earlier point about people that actually that may possibly lack social capital. I don't know. This was a kind of a easy way to do it. And if you look here, you see conservative podcaster John Farash swatted. This marks the third separate swatting incident in less than 24 hours. And before that, I guess it was popular conservative influencer Gunther Eagleman was swatted. So the point is we're seeing all these swattings. Now, I'm of two minds here. I believe it was actually, I don't know if it was one of the shows that William was on with us. He made some comment a while back that I kind of agree with, that we might start seeing some weird scenes, weird canyon scenes type shit here where people start dropping dead, influencer types. Now, these influencer types that I'm seeing right now are not the types I'm actually genuinely concerned about. But these are the types that kind of feed into that feed into the social contagion of this being a thing, because now you have that, and I'm not even necessarily saying all of these or any of these people were given the word. Maybe one of them was, maybe none of them, but it's almost like this contagion, and then you're like, this information is being put out, and then it continues, and you're like, oh, look at this influencer, and then all you need is some influencer out there who's like, I don't know, it'd be kind of cool to make a name for myself real quick. This takes zero effort. I could right now tweet, I just got swatted.
Right.
Who's gonna fucking prove me wrong? And then and if you are really concerned about it, I don't know if how publicly accessible police reports are. I can call the police myself. There you go. I've been swatted, and I'm not even saying all these people are doing it. I'm just saying we're seeing all these swattings. I will say the thing that started this all off though was the one guy dying. So I'm not saying that there's some crazy. I don't know what that guy was covering before he died, what was going on. Maybe it had nothing to do with that. Maybe it was just a freak accident. But this almost feels like a don't let a good crisis go to waste type thing. Because then we've also seen Alex Jones playing along with InfoWars narrative of saying that, what's his face? That one, General Flynn essentially gave him, fed him intel that they're trying to kill him is the thing right now, that there's credible assassination attempts on Alex Jones' life out there. And while this all seems ridiculous, this stuff, it feels like I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there was somebody who died, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more people dying, or more actual people, or even more swattings and stuff, but with people that you're like, oh, these are actually people that are pushing the line, that are over the line. Mm-hmm. I mean, now to back up, I will say it's completely possible this is all legit, and this is some weird left-wing push or something. These are also people that are of a size that are completely believable. They're getting organically swatted too. So my point being, I'm just saying, I just feel it in my bones. Some element of this whole thing feels fake. Now, to what degree it's fake or not, I don't know. Obviously, somebody did die, and that seems what started this all off. But then all of a sudden, now we have all these kind of what I'm implying are vacuous influencers. The type of influencers are like the guys are like, oh, here's someone with 400,000 followers, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And you're like, you ask 10 people, and they're like, I don't know, I've never heard of him. And one of those people are like, where are all these people coming from? Who is this? And then they probably don't really have an actual that real type of base. You know what I mean? Because there are a lot of games that are played online of perception. You're like, oh, this guy has 300,000 followers. And you're like, okay. I mean, I've seen so many people get ratioed by a fucking couple thousand follower account when they have hundreds of thousands. And it's like, oh, you clearly don't have the support you thought you did. These numbers are illusory at times. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, but I mean, all of social media feels like some sort of astroturfed environment at a certain point, though. But yeah, I don't know, man. By the way, General Flynn, Mike Flynn, was such a strange, larger-than-life character in The Operators, that Michael Hastings book. He was in the inner circle of General Stanley McChrystal when McChrystal was running the Afghanistan war. And basically was really close with him throughout his tenure with Joint Special Operations Command as well, and everything. And Mike Flynn had a strange, he had a very interesting interaction with Michael Hastings during their time while they were stationed together. Well, it's technically while he was in the bubble, the media access bubble around Flynn's inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Flynn has, clear knowledge of Michael Hastings' targeted assassination due to the bombshell story that he was potentially going to reveal in before his death. But anyway, you combine the influencers being swatted, just the idea, the concept, with this sort of violation of the First Amendment that's taking place in this very moment, and tie that directly to this aNTiSeMItiSm task force, right? Which, by the way, I didn't mention earlier, but it's legitimately this U.S. Department of Justice said on Thursday that it created this federal task force to combat aNTiSeMItiSm, and this task force will be heading to 4 U.S. cities as part of the Trump administration's broad crackdown on college protests critical of Israel. And the DOJ said this task force, led by attorney Leo Terrell, will be visiting the leadership of New York, Boston, Chicago, and Los Angeles to discuss their responses to incidents of anti-Semitism at schools and on college campuses in their cities over the last 2 years. While the pro-Palestine protests that swept college campuses have been labeled anti-Semitic, many Jewish students and organizations have participated. The DOJ said that Terrell informed city leaders that he was aware of allegations that the schools in their respective cities may have failed to protect Jewish students from unlawful discrimination and potential violation of federal law. So that is where we stand. And it is unprecedented. So
to bring it to sorry, I mean, I'll pass it back. I wanted to. Fuck! I just lost my. Fuck! All right, go back to you. My bad.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I had a point that just hit in my head. I'm like, shit! I want to cover this real quick before I forget about it, and then
if you remember, go ahead and make your point, because I was really just kind of finalizing my point by saying that.
I got it now. What I was sort of getting at earlier with the idea of how like there's these semi-vacuous influencers that this is happening in, and so this is the point being is it makes you a little more skeptical when you see certain characters that you're like are kind of these large-ish influencers that aren't really of anything of substance. So they're kind of vacuous. So you're like. You see a lot of these, and then these add up, and then now when something like what started all this, somebody dying, or even somebody like let's say a Glenn Greenwald or a Matt Taibbi or somebody covering actual substantive hard-hitting stuff, when they get swatted or something, it takes the fact that this has been happening to all these other ones makes it seem less ridiculous, less of a thing that needs to be looked into, and if it does get looked into, you're looking into the broad thing as opposed to it on an individual, when it's like a lot of those other ones could be just complete bullshit. I did want to hone in on Poyo here saying, I'm working, so I can't be chatty Cathy, but I have friends in that neighborhood where that kid was killed. I asked them about the incident, and apparently there's a homeless camp right there, and it had to do with that, which I did read an article about that, and it did seem that was the implication that maybe, I guess he'd been robbed before, and it looked like he was being robbed again, and it looked like I did go to say I found it ridiculous. I guess Alex Jones characterized it as an assassination, kill shot, and it was like an assassination style kill, shot to the throat.
Yeah,
that's not an assassination style kill. No. I mean, I guess you are assassinating them and you're killing them, but that's not what anyone thinks of when they you think of when someone says an assassination. What's being evoked here is it was professional. It was likely 2 to the chest, 1 to the dome, or just 1 to the dome, like something very close and personal, a shot to the throat. No one fucking shoots someone in the throat. So it was immediately off the bat you characterize as an assassination style kill, shot through the throat, shot from, and it's almost like shot to the throat. And you're like, so obviously he's immediately being, kind of, spiced up of like, did we? And you're like, obviously, yeah, that's where everyone's mind goes to. But obviously come on, that's ridiculous. You got shot in the throat. Like, no hitman out there is like, let's assassinate him, shoot him in the throat.
Yeah.
What a bizarre way to kill someone. I mean, it worked. If anything, it's more. If anything, that denotes to me it was more of a in the moment type thing, because that is an odd place to intentionally shoot someone. So you either shoot center mass or in the head or something. So it makes no sense. I did want to take a second to point out that Kash Patel has already addressed this as well. It says, I want to address the alarming rise in swatting incidents targeting media figures. The FBI is aware of this dangerous trend, and my team and I are already taking action to investigate and hold those responsible accountable. This isn't about politics. Weaponizing law enforcement against any American is not only morally reprehensible, but also endangers lives, including those of our officers. That will not be tolerated. We are fully committing to working with local law enforcement to crack down these crimes. More updates to come. Obviously, there's not really anything to be drawn out of that. It's just more that it's reached his office. I thought it was worthwhile pointing out. So,
right. Yeah. Did you see? Well, by the way, the only reason that I kind of dovetailed in the anti-Semitism task force with that story that you just presented is just basically because. Imagine if there is a real crackdown on freedom of speech in this way of the anti-Semitism pretext, because then it's legitimately hey man, Tower Gang could get swatted. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, right? it creates this very slippery slope, and really the environment we're in this very moment is kind of primed and ready for such a dystopian pivot. So it would make sense. But anyway, keep that in mind and be well aware of that potential reality. But did you see Colonel Douglas McGregor, by the way, go on Tucker?
No. Oh, I didn't know
Found
Tucker.
it very interesting because he went on. He's talking about how he tells Tucker that the way Trump handled Zelensky is the way he's got to handle Netanyahu, because if he doesn't, Netanyahu will drag him into the abyss in the Middle Eastern escalation, claiming because he wants this war with Iran come hell or high water. And then he says, he had another statement which I found very interesting. It was he says, oh yeah, this was it. He explains how this I found strange. He says the Mexican drug cartels are a far greater threat to the U.S. than China, Russia, or Iran. And then he says they've got Javelin missile systems on our border and American officials on their payroll. And I was like, what the hell?
You're probably not wrong, but I don't like where you're going.
I don't like that either. That sounds terrible. No.
Yeah.
But anyway, those two things I felt like were at least worth mentioning. Really briefly.
Speaking of Jews, on to our last topic of the day, unless you have something else for us. I just, this is going to be super quick. I'm not going to read an article or anything about this because I think we may have covered this. But for some reason, I'm under the impression not. So I just really wanted to make sure that you did cover it, regardless of whether it was covered the other day or not. We did cover the other day the whole Massie drama, and then how maybe there's more to it than meets the eye, because recently he kind of had this big stand down, not stand down.
He was standing in the way of the
what's the word I'm looking for? Stand. Where you're standing, standoff. Yeah, there's what it's I couldn't think of the right preposition, but he had a standoff type deal with the entire GOP, and then Trump gave him shit, kind of like essentially the whole idea is he's digging his heels in because this new spending bill that's coming through, a new budget bill essentially, and they're just trying to re-extend the Biden administration, which would just continue us at Biden spending levels. And the idea being like, oh, well, in the future, at a future time, we will actually vote on fiscally responsible measures. And their reasoning for why they're not doing it now is because they don't have enough Republicans, but they're going to do it later at a time when there haven't even been any new votes in any new elections yet. So it's like it makes no difference. But anyways, we talked about through all that how there might be more, and there obviously anyone knows anything about Massie knows he's had some issues with the Israeli types. And so, in the course of our talk yesterday, in the article, there were implications that maybe Trump would turn against him. Obviously, Trump had shit on him already, but the idea that it looked like this had already maybe been in the works. This had been something being pushed elsewhere. And it looks like it's come to fruition. Once again, I'm not sure if this had already been happened when I read that article, but I guess the Republican Jewish coalition will join Trump in backing a primary challenge to Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie. So here we are. The Jays and Donnie are aligning to go against our fearless leader Tommy Massie. So
Moshiach in full form, man. It is. Yeah, I'm concerned about Israeli interests going forward. I'll be honest, man. Like it very much seems as if this is the greater Israel project, and that is what looks like America first is Israel first, and that's what it seemed like this represented was Israel first in the context of Trump versus America first in the context of Thomas Massie. That's really what it seems like. Yep. And as much as I don't really play that game of black hats and white hats, occasionally it fits, right? And it kind of feels that way in this context. But yeah, I agree. We need to protect that man at all costs, Jacob.
But with that, bud, you ready to get out of here? We're almost at 2 hours. Finally got you on one of these shows.
Interesting week, brother.
Yeah, wild week.
But the time change fucked me so hard.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm doing my best.
It does take adjusting. But I'm assuming you'll probably join us one of these days this weekend. Once again, when it comes to the weekends, those are up in the air. I'm not entirely sure if I will be there tomorrow or Sunday. I likely will. So, but keep an eye out for those. And the weekend ones are far more subject to moving around times. I'll let you guys know. That's all they're always subject to. The goal is usually 10 a.m. Eastern, but these are all subject to being moved around, especially the weekends ones. But with that, Austin, let people know where they can find you. And we'll get out of here. And we'll keep knocking out morning dumps for you guys. And we'll also be back with another Already Dead on Tuesday. So
Sounds good. Yep. Nothing but love for all you guys. You know that. And you guys can support me at the Underclass Podcast basically anywhere. The best place to financially support me would definitely be the Patreon. I'll be dropping another whatever this is soon. So that'll probably happen today because I stayed up till like 1 a.m. last night recording an episode. Dude. Like I can't believe that Brad can stay up till 3 a.m. to record with us, but it's totally fine with me. You know what I mean? But it's like, man, it was still
I want the invite, but I wouldn't have shown up.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm like, it is late as shit. And Sam's like, is this too late? And I'm like, I'm fine. I mean, I know it's 11 for me, you know, but still. Anyway, so it was still a lot of fun. I think you guys will enjoy it. So definitely support the Patreon. And other than that, man, I think the episode went well. It seems like the reaction is very positive. So I'm at least proud of our presentation, brother.
Yeah, I think it was just good. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, man, I think we'll only improve in our ability to kind of like present a lot of this information going forward. And then our dynamic will only get better. And I think it's already pretty damn good. So, you know, we'll just give us a little time and we'll consistently improve. I guarantee that much. But
yeah.
Anyway, appreciate all of you for sure, man. Love you, Jose.
Love you too, brother. Next episode will probably, if I had to guess, we're not scheduled, just saying that, but so far as a theme, will probably be more like a already dead. You know, the idea being those who have been suicided along the way. I think that would probably be the next move. It just makes the most sense. And I don't even know where the fuck we'd go after that. I'm sure we'd find something new to grab onto by that point. But anyways, guys, if you want to support the show, I do want to run you through a few different ways you can do that. There's a non-paying option if you are in a spot you can't afford to, and if that's the case, I don't want you to give me money. I want you to make sure your shit is correct before you start donating to us over here. But if you aren't able to contribute money, some of the best ways to do it, non-money wise, is you can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can comment, you can leave a 5-star review. You can follow me and Austin on social media as well. That helps a bunch. And I know it sounds ridiculous. Obviously, for one, it makes number go up, but two, on top of all that, you can tag us and stuff. And this is where you'll get this stuff on the show. Where at least me, I know Austin is as well, are very responsive to you guys. So if you tag us and stuff, I'd say like 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, we bring them on the show. Unless it's something retarded, they're like, I don't want to talk about this. But for the most part, that's not the case. Also, if you now on to the paying options, you can follow me at Tarek Jose, by the way. That's my Twitter @. But for so far as paying options, there's also, if you want to pay and get an actual physical product, you can go over to NWJShaveco.com. Use Jose at checkout, get 10% off, and that's where you'll get a superior shaving product to the alternative. It's a single blade safety razor. It is cheaper than the alternative. It is better than the alternative. It gives you a closer shave. It's better for your skin. It's cheaper. It's from a company that doesn't hate your guts. And then, you get 10% off. Use Jose at checkout. And then on top of all that, if you really, really want to support the show and you want to give it directly to this guy or Austin, but Austin obviously has a different Patreon, but you can go to the Patreon, patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. That's mine. The lowest level is $2, and the lowest level is where you get access to the early episodes. I'm shooting for 1 to 2 a week behind the paywall, with 4, roughly like 4-ish behind the paywall at all times. So you guys will be getting more value. Also, there's an ad-free RSS feed there that you guys can get access to. And on top of all that, you can be a talking head on me and Austin's weekly call-in show, which is already dead. That's on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. The highest level is my sponsors, or I read them off every episode, and my co-hosts on Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad, also at EbrigateDs, at ZOVRECK, at _InfanSeal, Tim Tuttle, at Jolly Uncleebold, then Will Bell's Delicious Blueberry Rabbit Eye Wine, then big fan of the show, Torrin May, and then at INWARD Lover. And with that, guys, we are out of here. Love you all. Deuces. Bye-bye.